Haram Beth. Where is he in the scriptures? See, the name Haram Beth, it's not in the Bible. It is not scriptural. Yet, the Masonic account of Haram is often said to be based on the Holy Bible. In the Master Masonry Creed, in a portion of the ritual known as the Legend of the Third Degree, there are three central characters. The storyline is set around the building of Solomon's temple. The character, King Solomon, Haram, the king of Tyre, and Haram Abeth are all taken from the scripture's account of building Solomon's temple. Right? King Solomon and Haram, king of Tyre, are mentioned many times in the scriptures, such as in the 5th chapter. About the closest the scriptures come to Haram Abeth is Haram Ib, Haram Abi, Haram Ib, which is found in 2 Chronicles 2:13. Right? Haram is a variant of Haram. Huran is a variant of Hiran. So in the King James translation of the verse, the name Haran is found. Hiran. The King James uses both Huram, Huran, and King James uses both Huram, Huran, and read first King to identify Haran, the king of Tyre. So the King James translation of 2 Chronicles 2:13 does not contain Abi, ABI, but rather Huram, Huran, my father. The Hebrew word which the King James Fathers was translated as Abba. Abba. According to the Hebrew dictionary found in Strong's Concordance, Strong's entry for the word Abba, H1, indicates that it also means fatherless. Fatherless, as a son of a widow. The son of a widow would be. So the entry for H1 also mentions Abi, ABI. Studying the various translations along with the Hebrew dictionary allows one to see how Freemasonry may have settled on the name Haram IB. Also stands for Haram ABI. Haram to its island, only letting show
So it was only my mother and I realised that she's there. The responsibility fall on me, but I saw my mother getting strong. I thought about joining Freemasons. Business was curious to look right. They all did out and go straight to us. Every day on the bed, put my hands and prayed a prayer. Did names Freemason. I said, Sally, did woman exercise. And I myself. There was a hole in me that I couldn't fill. I tried. I used to do horse riding. I used to do bike riding, walking, dancing, martial arts. I used to go diving. So many. Skiing, water skiing, snow skiing, anything. Just trying to fill this hole in me. I couldn't do it. And so I was on this mission to just spend every hour, every second of the day doing something. And I was still grieving for my father. If anybody had come to me and say, you got a mum and dad, and I said, well, I've got a mum. but I couldn't even mention Grandma Farm. That used to be like a knife. And because I spent so long in looking after my mother and having that responsibility to bring my mother from having that nervous breakdown, I didn't have time to grieve. And so I pulled it up. I encased it like in a concrete case and put it so far down, this pain. You know, I was brought up in my youth to go to church on a Sunday. And this Sunday, I was a bit bored because my parents obviously wanted to stay together, but I would go there on a Sunday. And the only thing I really learned was to pray, to bend your knee, put your hands together. That was how to pray. The decision then was, what do I really start doing? Make some money. I had all the tools from doing the tree work. So I decided to do some door knocking and put some adverts in the paper or whatever. And suddenly this work started coming in. And I went to college, learned how to climb with ropes and harness. And I was a bit of one of these that I'll try it. You know, I'll have a go. I don't need so I learned the hard way and made some mistakes. Trees went wrong way and I dropped, you know, a few branches through things. But I learned through my experiences. And we started getting very successful. I had people working for me. And a man approached me one day. He started becoming a friend and a work colleague. And he said, have you ever thought about joining the Freemasons? No. He said, oh, I think you'd benefit. He said, you're not really allowed to say this, but your business would benefit. And I was thought, well, if my business will benefit, then we'll have a go, you know, see what it's about. And I asked him a few questions and he said, oh, I can't tell you. I went, oh, why can't you? He said, well, it's secret, and so that's part of you coming in that you'll learn about. So I thought, oh, well, you know, I've got nothing to lose. I'll go into it. So I went through the interview and I spoke as well as I could and went fairly tidy and I got through. So I went into this different ceremonies, first degree, the second degree, and the third degree. Not knowing what you're going to say or the actions you're going to make, and the obligations and the promises. I had nothing about that, and you don't know it until you do it. So they say, oh, will you follow me? And you say these words. The first degree, you go through the ceremony, and you are told then to remember a part of it to go into the second degree. And you are asked a question: what is Freemasonry? It's a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Well, at the time, I was so determined to learn it, I didn't really understand what I was saying. And that is a lot with Freemasonry. It's quite Old English, some language that you don't normally use. A peculiar system of morality. So the morals, true morals, peculiar means warped. So it's warped morality, warped morals. Veiled with allegory. Allegory is secrecy. So there's a secret, and it's always a secret until you get to the next part, and then it's secret again. Illustrated by symbols, and every symbol that is in Freemasonry is the same symbols as is in the covens, which the witches and the warlocks and the high priests take their obligations and promises into their different degrees, different levels. But I didn't know that. So I spent 2 years kind of going along and not bumbling along. I wouldn't say going along, but bumbling along and thinking, well, I don't know what all this is about. But my business started growing because they were saying, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a tree surgeon." "Oh, I've got a tree, and I'd rather have you do it than." So I thought, "Oh, I'm on a good wicket here. I'm doing well." And then people started saying, "Oh, would you like to go to another lodge and visit?" I thought, well, if I go there, then people will say, "Oh, what do you do?" "I'm a tree surgeon." Well, and it started, my business started growing, and probably a third of my business started to be Freemasons. But I really wasn't interested in all the ceremonies. I was interested in the social part and the meal and the chat afterwards, but not the ceremonies. During this time, I got married. Now, this girl that I married, I met her at a club. I didn't live with her. I only met her, and I probably saw her 2 or 3 times a week and fell in love with her. And she fell in love with me, and I just, within probably about 8 months, we decided to get married. And we got married, and it was a church affair, and with all the pomp and the ceremony, white dresses and tail suits and top hats, and and my honeymoon was like a nightmare. Suddenly, I didn't realize that this girl had 2 sides to her. She'd suffered with anorexia for 4 years, so severely that it had affected her mind, and she had double personality. And I'd only seen the best part. I'd only seen the hide, not the jackal. And I could tell by what she wore in the morning on what mood she was in. And so we decided after 6 months that I couldn't handle it anymore. I was actually going to have a nervous breakdown. That if I was going the same way as her, I couldn't understand what she was doing and the mood she was in. She left a few times and came back, and I just felt just a pain in me. And so we got divorced. But I still like dancing, so I thought, what should I do in the evening? So I started going out dancing again, and within several months, I started going out with girls again. And I thought, well, the past is the past, but inside there was this pain. And for one thing, there was this, remember the concrete block that I had in me. And then there was the pain from, I'd given my life to be with this girl for the rest of my life. That's what I believed at the time. And so it was like my life was just pulled apart when my marriage split up. And I can always liken it to 2 bottles of acid. One from a father dying and one from a wife leaving. And suddenly they were poured together. And I couldn't cope. I was into tree surgery, so I was climbing. I was into dancing, martial arts, doing other things. But this hole in me and the pain, and I couldn't cope. I couldn't sleep. And when I woke up, it was still there. Remember, the only thing I really learnt at church, or when I was a little boy, was how to pray. And when I came back one night from the clubs, I knelt down. Knelt down at the bed, put my hands together, and prayed a prayer. Simple prayer, saying, I don't know if you're there. You may be a God that is over the hill and far away, and I'm such a sinner, and I haven't spoken to you for years. But I need help. I'm desperate. I don't know what else to say. And I left her. 2 days later, I was taking this tree down for an old lady. She was in her middle 70s. And I took it down and started sweeping up. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Knights, would you like to come into the kitchen?" So I went in, and she said, "Oh, your check's on the side, but also the Lord has been speaking to me, and you've been praying. And I'd like to help you today." Now, I'm twice the size of her. I've always denied everything. And I said, "No, I'm fine, thank you." And she leans forward and points her finger right in my face. And she said, "God doesn't lie to me. You've been praying, and I'd like to help you." And I went, "Well, maybe a little bit." And she gave me a little invitation. And it was the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International, a men's breakfast. And those went right over my head. And I went, "Really, don't expect me to come, because I'm not into this." And she said, "Well, I'm going to pray for you every morning and every night that you will come." And I didn't even look at the address. And I thought, I don't want to do this. But I'll put it in my suit pocket just in case I go. So I went upstairs, opened the cupboard, and put it in my suit pocket. And I didn't realize it was in 3 weeks' time. So I had plenty of time to forget about it. And I did. Forgot all about it and carried on in my life. And this particular morning, at 8:30, which was most unusual for me, because I've been dancing and meeting young ladies until the early hours. And I used to sleep until about 11 o'clock. And so I look at my watch, and it's 8:30, thinking. And I feel full of beans. I feel wide awake. And I feel something I've got to do. Something leads me to the wardrobe. And I put my hands in the pocket and draw out this, this is 3 weeks after this lady had given it. I'd forgotten all about this card. I looked at it, the Turak Hotel, which is one of the main hotels in Torquay, 9 o'clock breakfast. And I love breakfasts. And, the Lord just knows how to get you, And anyway, I get in my truck and drive down there. I get down to the Turak Hotel 3 minutes before 9. Think, good, I don't have to talk to anybody. I'll see what it's about, have my fried bread, and then go and do some shopping. So I go in and start walking up the steps, and this lady is on the top of the steps. And I was expecting her to say, "Nice day, thank you for coming," but she didn't. She pointed a finger right in my face again and said, "The Lord had to get you up and remind you to come." And I went, "Oh, whoa, this is spooky stuff." And, I don't know if to go in, because I've never had anything like this before. But probably the smell of the bacon and the eggs and whatever. And I thought, I'll go in, but be very careful. Anyway, I went in, and this lady sat the other side of the room. And I sat next to two ladies. And I was quite comfortable with that and started chatting, had this lovely breakfast. And suddenly they said, "Well, we'd like to introduce you to this man," and I can't remember his name, to share his testimony this morning. I went, "Oh, right, okay, I'll just carry on eating." Anyway, he started talking, and I thought, his life was so much like mine. He'd lost a parent, and he was into martial arts, and he was a very physical man. I think, I could virtually write this for him. So much like that. So I started listening. And in the middle of his story, his testimony, he said, "There was a man in here. You've been brought up as a Christian. You've sang to God. You've been taught about God. And you prayed." Of course, I was in the choir. I was in an Anglican church, high Anglican church, with all the frills and the frocks. And, what didn't impress me too much when I was a lad. And I've been to Sunday school. was bored out of my mind, and but I had prayed, and I thought, so how does he know this then? Because I looked around and think, is there anybody in here that knows me? I thought there isn't anybody at all. There was about 80 people in there. I thought, and I felt like he was talking to me. And he said, you may have sang, you may have learnt, and you may have prayed, but the Lord has brought you here this morning to become a born-again Christian. I went, wow. And suddenly, it was like a flash of a video. And I don't know if you've ever had, in a flash of a second, I saw me praying, this woman who spoke to me with the apple tree, something getting me up this morning, and me getting here. There was a chain of events that brought me here, where the Lord answered my prayer. Now, I could have totally denied it, but it was like a washing machine going on in me. And I knew in my heart that God had brought me there, answered my prayer. Now, I've got a choice there. Nobody knows that I'm the guy that he's speaking about. And he said, will you come forward? And I thought, my backside stuck to my seat, and I wouldn't have thought, yeah, right, I'm not going to go forward. What, amongst 80 people and make a fool of myself? No. And he said, it's all right, the Lord's just told me, just join hands and we'll pray a prayer of salvation. I thought, okay, now if there'd been a man either side, I wouldn't have held his hand. It's really strange, isn't it? The Lord knows your heart, and he put two ladies there. And I thought, yeah, I can hold these ladies then. And he said, I'm going to go through a prayer where you're a sinner, and you ask the Lord to repent, and you ask Jesus Christ into your life. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. So I prayed the salvation prayer, and suddenly the presence of God hit me. And I was carrying a weight. It was so heavy. And I used to be able to carry, you may know the old cement bags, the little, the new cement bags, some more like carrier bags. But the old ones were 100-weight carrier bags. And I could carry two of them on my shoulder and run to a site and just tell the guys, you take that one and you take that one. And it was that kind of weight suddenly lifted off me. And the Lord said, I'll have that weight. And this backpack that I didn't realize was there had so much in it. And over the years that, the unforgiveness and the bitterness and the anger and the blame and everything else that had come, within this backpack, the Lord said, I'll have that. And he took this backpack off. And I had to look at my feet to make sure that I was still on the ground. I felt so light. And I felt that the Lord had totally touched my life then. And I cried. I started crying. I haven't been able to cry since my father died. And I cried for about 3 hours. It just come out of me. And it was flowing. And people gave me tissues and handkerchiefs, and I just cried and cried. And the Lord was washing me. So after this amazing experience, that I knew God had touched me. So as I was leaving, after several hours of crying my eyes out, I came out of the hotel, and I heard God's voice, so plain, so clear. And he said, finish with the girl that I'd started going out with. And I'd been going out with her for several months. And he called her by her name. And so I went, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But Lord, I said, God, that she's a bit theatrical. And she's fallen in love with it. And I know that I'm going to have such a scene. And I really need the courage to do it. And so he told me again. And he was trying to get my attention, and I was really putting it on. Now, the third time he told me, I'm going to share this experience. My brother came down with his wife and 3 children for the weekend, and my mother had come over to say, and they were leaving, and there was no reason why any of them had to cross the road, because their car was parked on the pavement and my house was right next to the pavement. So they started coming out, and suddenly the middle daughter, Jasmine, ran across the road for no reason, just ran across the road, and this car came and hit her right through, and she lifted up in the air and bounced, and she was totally still. I ran out and picked her up, and I stood in the middle of the road, and it was like the stillness of time. There was the engine wasn't running in the car, the man didn't get out, my family, my brother, and they were still. No noise, no nothing. And I heard God's voice saying, finish with this girl. And I went, what about Jasmine? He said, there'll be nothing wrong with her. And with that, she started crying. The man got out of the car, the engine's still running, and my brother and his wife, and they all screaming, shouting, and and I went back and gave Jasmine, the middle daughter, back to my brother, and I said, she'll be all right. He said, you know nothing, I'm going to take her to the hospital. Anyway, they kept her in for 48 hours, and all she had was a scratch here. But I know that she was dead when I picked her up, lifeless. And I thought, I can't tell anybody, because they'll never believe me. Perhaps it's just my imagination. Anyway, a couple of months went past, and my brother and his wife, Bella, came for the weekend. We were just in the lounge, and just the three of us. And suddenly this glaze came over my brother's eyes. He doesn't believe in God or Jesus or nothing. He just doesn't believe in anything. Suddenly this glaze comes over my brother's eyes. I think, what? And then Bella asked me the question. She's not a believer either. What happened, Paul? I went, what do you mean, what happened? I knew exactly what she was on about. And I said, what happened? What do you mean, Bella? She said, what happened in the street when we came down last night? I went, nothing very much. And she said, oh, yes, there was. I want you to tell me. And I went, do you really want to know? She said, yeah. I said, Jasmine died. She said, I know. And God brought her back to life through you. I went, wow. I said, how do you know that? She said, I knew. She knew on that day that God had brought her back to life through you. Cool. Talk about a revelation and confirmation. So immediately from when she was October, I went to this girl's house thinking, oh, here we go. We're going to have fireworks and all the, and I knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and I said, I'm sorry, we've got to finish this. She said, fine, and shut the door right in my face. I thought, and I was stood there with this door so close to my nose thinking, no, that can't be it. That she's going to open the door again. And she didn't. I thought, it can't be. It can't be that easy. And it was. The scripture says the Lord goes before you and prepares. And I went, well, surely she loved me more than that. I think, well, I don't know, a bit puffed. I don't know, really. Anyway. And I think within 2 days, I still like dancing, still like clubbing it and whatever. I met my wife, and it was just like the Lord wanted this other girl out of my life before I met Angela. And because of our kind of past, she'd been married before, I'd been married before, and we were a bit kind of hesitant. So this experience that Angela had, well, she didn't know if to fully get involved with me. And in a way she was praying, but not, she was just kind of asking fresh air. Am I really meant to be involved with this guy? He's got a background, I've got a background. And she was a hairdresser, and she was locking up one night, and this lady comes to the door, and she said, "I'm sorry, we're just locking up." She said, "No, I've come to see you." He went, "Come see me?" She said, "Yes, have you got just a few minutes?" She said, "Oh, yes." She said, so they both sat in the chairs and looked towards each other, and she said, "Yeah, I've got a message for you." She said, "You've just met a man. He's a born-again Christian, and if you give him your life, he will be your feet for the rest of your life. And you need to trust him, and he's the man for you." And that's the message I've got. And so she went, "Oh, all right, thank you very much." Now, she didn't know that I was born again. I hadn't told her. We hadn't got to that place, really. She turned the seat around and suddenly turned around to say this lady had gone. So she rushed through the door, and it's a 3 to 4 minute walk either way before any more roads or. She rushed out. This lady had gone. I really believe that was the message that has been sent.
Tyrone wrote a letter to King Solomon advising him that he was sending Aram to work on the temple. The letter is documented in 2 Chronicles. I'm telling you, let's get this more spaces. 2 Chronicles 2, 11 through 14. The fact that Aram was a son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali is confirmed in Scripture. Stop me where I'm going at. 2 Kings 7, Salakia. 1 Kings, the 7th chapter, verse 13 and 14. It reads, King Solomon sent to Tyre and bore Aram, whose mother was a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and whose father was a man of Tyre and craftsman in bronze. Hiram, highly skilled and experienced in all kinds of bronze work, he came to King Solomon and did all the work assigned to him. 1 Kings 7 chapter, verse 13 through 14. Now, although the most important element of the Masonic symbolism deals with the death, burial, and resurrection of Hiram Abiff, there is nothing in the scriptures. There is nothing in our scriptures to support it. Nothing. Nothing at all. Masonic governing lodges have stated that the account is not based upon fact, but rather is an allegory used to teach. So Hiram Abiff is simply a Masonic ritual. See, during the legend of the third degree, the candidate portrays Hiram Abiff in the ritual. He's blindfolded and led through a ritual by a conductor in a Masonic ritual. Hiram Abiff is not a worker of a brass as the scriptures, but rather a grand master at the building of Solomon's temple. Each day he lays out the work for the workmen to complete. There are fellow crafts who work on the temple who are to be given the secrets of a master masons and compensation. See? Do you understand? So when the temple is completed, once they have the secrets of the master mason, they will learn the wages of a master. A group of 15 fellow crafts decide that they do not want to wait until the work is completed. They form a plot, which only 3 of them carry through. The 3 ruffians. The 3 ruffians. So, subsequently, of course, Haran at the east gate, the south gate, and the west gate. The east gate, the south gate, and the west gate. A similar dialogue occurs at each temple entrance. The ruffians demand the secrets of a master mason. Haran explains that this is neither the time nor the place. The secrets can only be revealed in the presence of 3. King Solomon, Haran, king of Tyre, and myself. The ruffians then demand your life or the secrets. Haran responds, my life you can have, my integrity never. When they fail to get what they want, they strike Haran with one of the working tools, and he staggers to the next gate and the next encounter. The 3rd ruffian is also unable to extract the secret from Hiram Abiff. He strikes Haran on the head with a setting maul, kills him. Haran willingly laid down his life rather than betray his trust. This is where your secret comes from. The ruffians have not achieved their goal, and they have a body to dispose. They bury the body in a simple rubble and plan to return at midnight to give the body the most decent burial. So at midnight, they return and they carry the body to a hill west of Mount Moriah, where Hiram Abiff is reburied. The next day, Haran is nowhere to be found. A search is conducted. The fellow craft who did not go through with the conspiracy confess the plot. A grave is found. The body of Haran is found within it. Hiram Abiff has been in the grave for 15 days. King Solomon gives the order for the body to be raised using grips of the apprentice and the fellow craft. those efforts are unsuccessful. King Solomon states he fears that with the death of Aramabeth, the word of the master mason has been lost. Therefore, the first word spoken after Haram is raised from the grave will be substituted until the lost words can be recovered. Excuse me. So, yeah, I was saying King Solomon fears that with the death of Aramabeth, the order of the master mason